Vicky.
Doctors and nurses are trained to save our lives, but sadly, many deaths have been caused by deranged doctors and nurses who have turned into criminals. True crime author Amanda Howard has been looking into these cases from across the world, and she joins us this morning. Welcome back, Amanda. These cases are fascinating yet very, very disturbing. Tell us about this recent case of a male nurse in Germany who then became a serial killer.
Well, Niels Hogel he's gone to prison now for 6 cases. He would inject his patients because he would have a quiet shift and had nothing else to do. So he would inject the patients in their rooms, and he has now been charged with over 100 murders just recently. So he is about to go to prison, believe it or not, for 15 years.
Gosh.
Because a life sentence in Germany is only 15 years.
Really? Really?
So 106 cases are against him.
Wow.
So, yeah, so basically the only reason that he got caught was that he injected a patient in front of the family and they said, what's this for? And asked one of the other doctors, and the doctor said, this nurse shouldn't be doing that, and that's how he got caught. But he'd actually been working for another hospital and they were suspicious of his behaviour and that they had had a lot of deaths. But they actually just sort of pushed him off onto the next hospital rather than investigating.
Yep.
So it's terrifying. So they're actually being charged as well with patient deaths.
Yeah, correct. Negligence.
There was a particularly notorious man in England, Dr. Harold Shipman. Did the police ever find out how many lives he actually took?
Well, every time I look into this case, it's gone up another 100. So we're over 500 suspicious deaths under this GP's care. Now, most of his victims were actually elderly women. He would doctor their files to say that they were drug addicts or that they had serious illnesses, and he would sign off their death certificates. So there was never any
paper trail.
And it was only that one of his last victims, he actually forged her will, and so he was to get like £300,000 from her. But this woman's daughter was a lawyer herself and said, hang on a sec, I would have done her will. And that's the whole reason that the case blew up. So he went to jail for 15 murders. He lasted only a few years before he took his own life, so he never saw justice. But
I remember when that case came out. I mean, he's got such a trusting face, isn't he?
He looks
you can see how
lovely.
he can con everybody.
Exactly, and he was, you know, he had worked for several hospitals and all this sort of stuff, and he was loved. That even the people that were suspicious of him, because one of the funeral homes said, you know, it's another one of Shipman's, but they're like, but he's still my GP, and I can't think this of him because he was this lovely old man.
Is there something, we all know that psychopaths and serial killers often have a lack of empathy. It's part of the psychopathy, psychology. Is there something about being a doctor where you also have to be emotionally distant and you can't afford to get involved with the suffering of your patients, or you couldn't do your job? Well, that this is a common thread, that lack of empathy maybe is common to both psychopaths and maybe doctors?
Well, there's a lot of doctors that are psychopaths, I can tell you that.
Really?
But I mean, they have this the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, and yet these are going absolutely against that. And it comes down to a bit of power and control. And a lot of these cases that we're talking about today, it come down to a point that I can make you live or die.
So it's
and
just
they
because
have that. They can. It's purely. There was a case I was looking at recently from Canada where this nurse just decided, I don't like you.
Gosh.
And so she would kill her patients.
Oh my God.
So it's just something that it's quite powerful, and sometimes it is because they spend a lot of time practicing resuscitation, and they actually say, look what I can do. I'm so skilled at it.
It's a control thing.
It's a control thing.
Now, Amanda, you've also spent some time looking at cases in the US involving nurses, is that right?
That's right. So
what can you tell us about that?
Well, there's 2 nurses, Gwen Graham and Kathy Wood. Now, they decided to kill their victims in a nursing home using a wet face washer over the faces of their victims. But they did it in an interesting way, that they chose their victims to spell out the word murder with their first names. So they got to M-U-R-D-E before they were caught.
God. So their victims' names is in Mary.
Yeah, that's right. So they decided that that was their game. So not only...
That is so creepy.
Not only did they have fun doing this, but they made it into a game that they would send each other love letters with the M and the MU. and things like that. And there was also another guy in the United States, Orville Majors, who basically killed because it was a quiet shift. So, and he did hundreds of victims as well. He would just inject them. This is him now. He always protested that he was innocent, but he was always the key in the puzzle on the day that these victims died.
And Australia is not immune from its own medical scandals. There's the famous Dr. Harry Bailey and Chelmsford and sleep deep therapy, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So this is different to the others where they were actually killing patients purely because they could. This guy was actually doing it as part of his treatment, and at least 40 victims died in his care, where they would be drugged for 39 days. Kept asleep and were given electric shock therapy as well. That people didn't survive being left in these environments, and it actually took a group of Scientologists to come forward to have him brought to justice, and there was a big TV special on it and everything. But this was just one of those cases where he believed so much in his therapy, regardless that a lot of his patients died.
It was a very controversial case. I remember that one too.
That's right, yes.
Everyone thought this therapy was fantastic, but people didn't survive.
The families of the victims certainly did not.
Oh, well, sweet
Amanda?
dreams, everybody.
Yeah, I was just about to say uplifting, but thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Well, should you go for linen, cotton or even silk? Soon